My name's George Whitman, 54 years old, born and raised in Denton, Texas, where respect used to be worth more than money. For 30 years, I ran Whitman Construction, a small firm that built schools, barns, and half the county's homes. I wasn't rich, but I was steady. People trusted me. Then one bad partnership, one signature on the wrong line, and it all collapsed. The partner took the money, the bank took the trucks, and I took the blame. When my wife Linda left, she said, "I married a builder, not a bankrupt." She took our son Ethan and moved into my brother Martin's bigger house on Maple Road. That was 2 years ago. Since then, I've been renting a small trailer behind the feed store, fixing fences to stay busy and trying not to think about how fast pride can rot when nobody's around to see it. Last week, Martin called out of the blue. He said, "Family dinner, Georgie boy. Sunday night. You, me, Linda, Ethan, the whole crew. Let's put the past behind us." I almost hung up, but he kept talking, syrupy smooth. "It'll be good for Ethan to see you. Come on, big brother. Don't make it awkward." Awkward. That word stung worse than the bankruptcy notice ever did. So I said I'd come. Maybe I just wanted to see my son again. Maybe I was tired of pretending that silence counted as peace. Sunday came too quiet. I shaved, put on the one clean button-down I had left, and drove to Martin's place. The driveway lights glowed bright as a runway. Through the front window I saw silhouettes, laughing, drinking, comfortable. Martin's house used to be mine before I sold it to him during the hard year. The porch boards I nailed myself. The oak door I hung with my own hands. When Martin opened that same door, he grinned wide, the kind of grin that hides teeth. "Well, look what the wind blew back. Don't be shy, Georgie. We've got room at the table." I stepped inside. The smell of roast beef and bourbon hit me like memory. At the far end of the dining room sat Linda and Ethan, both dressed like they'd just stepped out of a magazine spread. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Martin raised his glass. "To family," he said, "and to second chances." I sat down, heart heavy but steady, not yet knowing that before dessert, they'd try to bury what was left of my dignity under that same toast. Martin poured me a drink, smile widening. "Don't worry, Georgie," he said. "Tonight's not about the past. It's about teaching you where you stand now." Dinner started like a peace offering and turned into a firing squad. Martin sat at the head of the table, carving roast beef with the showmanship of a man who'd never lifted anything heavier than a mortgage document. His wife laughed at every line he tossed out. Linda sipped wine, perfect posture, perfect silence. Ethan scrolled his phone between bites, his face glowing with blue light instead of respect. "So, George," Martin said, cutting a piece of meat and glancing up, "how's what do you call it now? Freelancing? Must be quite the adjustment from running a whole company." I forced a small smile. "It's honest work. Pays the bills." He chuckled. "Well, the ones you still have, I guess." Linda laughed quietly, shaking her head. "You always find a way to make failure sound noble." Ethan looked up. "Mom says you lost everything because you didn't listen to advice. Is that true?" Linda didn't even blink. "It's fine, sweetheart. Your father knows I only tell the truth." My jaw tightened. "The truth," I said slowly, "usually comes from people who paid for it." Martin leaned back, grinning. Now, Georgie. No need to get defensive. We're just trying to figure out what's next for you. Maybe some handyman work? I've got a few gutters that could use fixing. I'd pay, of course. Family rate." The table erupted in polite laughter. Even Ethan smiled, uncertain, looking to the adults for permission. I stared at my plate. the smell of meat turning sour in my throat. "You enjoy this, don't you?" I said quietly. Martin's grin sharpened. "What? Having my big brother home again? Absolutely." Linda tilted her glass toward me. "Don't take it so personally, George. We've all had to start over. You just fell farther than most." I looked at Ethan, my own son, waiting for him to speak up. He didn't. He just lowered his eyes and muttered, "Maybe Mom's right. You should have sold sooner." Something broke in my chest then, not loudly, not even visibly, but deep, like a fault line giving way. Martin refilled my glass with a grin. "To second chances, Georgie boy. If you're lucky, maybe one day you'll be back on your feet." I didn't touch the drink. I looked around the table, my ex-wife, my son, my brother, each one smiling like they were attending a wake I didn't realize was mine. I pushed the glass aside and said evenly, "You all talk like I'm already dead." The laughter faded. Linda looked away. Martin smirked, pretending not to hear. But Ethan, for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Shame or maybe fear. I leaned back, voice low enough for only Martin to hear. "Don't forget, little brother, dead men don't pay property tax." Morning light cut through the kitchen blinds like thin knives. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a place that had been full of laughter 12 hours earlier. I found Martin at the breakfast table, reading the paper and humming off-key. The kind of casual tune only people without guilt can manage. "Sleep well?" he asked without looking up. "Fine," I said, though I hadn't closed my eyes. "Didn't realize bourbon helps people sleep that easy." He smirked. "You get used to it when your conscience is clear." I poured myself a cup of coffee, the smell cutting through the ache in my head. "Mind if I ask you something?" He folded the paper, leaning back. "Ask away, Georgie boy." I took a slow sip. "Who's paying the property tax for this place?" He laughed, a single sharp sound. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I just noticed your name on the mailbox, but I don't remember signing anything over." "You're kidding." He set the paper down, feigning amusement. "You sold me this house years ago, remember? You were drowning in debt. Said you needed to clear your books. I did you a favor, brother." I met his eyes. "A favor?" "Of course. You'd have lost it to the bank if I hadn't stepped in. You signed the deed yourself." Something in his tone made the room feel colder. "Did I?" I asked quietly. He blinked, taken aback for half a second before recovering. "Yeah. Right there at my kitchen counter. You were holding that same chipped mug, come to think of it." "Funny," I said, staring into my coffee. "Because that mug's been mine since I built this kitchen." The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. Martin leaned forward, his voice losing its humor. "You need to stop this, George. Everyone knows you're not yourself lately. You start digging into old paperwork, people will think you finally lost it." I smiled thinly. Maybe I did. Maybe I just misplaced the truth. He stood, done pretending to be polite. "Don't go starting something you can't finish. You've got nowhere to stand anymore." I looked around the kitchen, the cabinets I'd hung, the floorboards I'd laid, the table we'd once built together back when family still meant something. "Funny," I said, setting down the mug, "because last night, everyone sure seemed comfortable standing on my work." Then I walked out, the screen door slamming behind me. Out on the porch, I pulled my wallet and looked at the faded deed copy folded inside, Anna's handwriting in the corner. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if Martin's memory was false, or mine was about to prove him a liar. By midweek, the whispers started crawling through town like kudzu on a fence. The clerk at the gas station gave me that half-smile people save for someone they've already pitied. He said, "Heard you been asking about property stuff again, Mr. Whitman. Folks say you're getting mixed up these days." "Folks say a lot," I muttered, handing him cash for the fuel. At the diner, old friends avoided my booth. One of them, Tommy Jacobs, who used to work under me, just nodded stiffly and said, "Take care of yourself, boss," before hurrying out like I carried something contagious. It didn't take long to trace the rumor's roots. Martin had been busy. "He's not all there anymore," I overheard him telling someone outside the hardware store. "Thinks he still owns the place. Breaks my heart." Breaks his heart. Linda didn't bother hiding her contempt. She called me that evening, her tone clipped, precise. "Martin said you came by asking about paperwork again," she said. "I hope you're not planning to embarrass Ethan with this obsession." "Embarrass him?" I asked. "You mean by remembering what's mine?" She sighed audibly. "George, you need help. You can't live in the past. Maybe it's time to accept things the way they are." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Maybe it's time someone did." When she hung up, the silence in the trailer felt heavier than usual. I sat staring at the wall until the clock ticked past midnight. Then I stood, grabbed my flashlight, and drove out to the old storage shed on County Road 11, the last place I'd kept anything that mattered. The air inside was thick with dust and motor oil. The beam from my flashlight landed on a weathered cedar box tucked behind a stack of old blueprints. It was Anna's box, her handwriting still scrawled on the lid. Taxes, deeds, receipts. I pulled it down and set it on the workbench. The hinges squealed like they hadn't been touched in years. Inside, everything was exactly where I remembered. Folders tied with string, envelopes brittle at the edges, and there, under an old utility bill, was the original deed for the house on Maple Road. The paper was yellowed, but the signatures were clear. Mine, Anna's. And one more, faint, partial, pressed into the corner in cheap blue ink. A thumbprint that wasn't mine. Martin's. It wasn't proof yet, but it was close. I stared at that print until my hands stopped shaking. He hadn't bought the house. He'd stolen it. I tucked the deed into a manila envelope, sealed it, and slid it into the glove compartment of my truck. As I shut the door, I saw movement in the rearview mirror. A car parked across the road. Headlights off. Someone was watching. The next morning started with a sound I'll never forget. Silence where an engine should have been. My truck wouldn't start. Not a click, not a cough. The battery had been fine last night. I lifted the hood and found the cable cleanly cut. Inside my mailbox, an envelope waited. The return address read, Denton First Bank. I tore it open. Account temporarily frozen pending verification of identity. Below that, reported irregularities regarding ownership documents filed under Whitman Construction. I didn't need to guess who'd made the report. I spent the next hour calling the bank, getting transferred between polite voices that all said the same thing. We just need time to sort this out. By noon, word had spread faster than the frost. Linda showed up at the feed store, lipstick perfect, posture sharp. She didn't even come inside, just stood by her car door and waited until I walked over. "Ethan doesn't want you contacting him anymore," she said. "He's trying to focus on his exams. This drama isn't good for him." "Drama?" I asked. "Someone forged my signature, Linda. That's not drama. That's theft." She gave a tired smile. "You really can't help yourself, can you?" Then she looked over my shoulder toward two customers pretending not to stare. "George," she said, lowering her voice, "you're embarrassing yourself. People feel sorry for you. Don't make it worse. She turned to leave, but I called after her. You live under my roof, Linda. You and Martin both. That house, she stopped, half turning. You sold it. You just can't remember. Then she got in the car and drove off, gravel spitting behind her. By the time the store closed, the manager, a kid young enough to be my grandson, walked over, hat in hand. Mr. Whitman, my dad said maybe you should take a few weeks off, till things cool down. So that was that. I drove the borrowed truck out past the highway, back to the shed, sat on the porch step with the deed envelope in my lap, and the sky going orange over the fields. No sound but wind and the far-off bark of a dog. No one left to call, no money, no family, no name that meant anything anymore. For a moment, I wondered if this was how a man disappears, quietly, one humiliation at a time. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe. A voice crackled through, rough and familiar. Georgie, it's Earl. You remember me? County Records Office back in the day? I blinked, gripping the phone tighter. Earl Sanders? Yeah. Listen, buddy. We need to talk. About that house. The wind shifted, carrying dust across the porch as Earl's voice dropped to a whisper. Your name's still on the deed, George. They never filed a transfer. Earl Sanders hadn't changed much in 20 years. Same sun-beaten skin, same slow drawl that always made you listen harder to catch the words. He met me at the old diner off Route 19, the one with the flickering neon sign and burnt coffee that could melt rust. When I walked in, he was already there, stirring sugar into a cup he'd probably never drink. Didn't think I'd be hearing from you again, Earl, I said. He smiled faintly. Didn't think I'd have reason to call. Sit down, George. I slid into the booth, the vinyl sticking to my sleeves. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folded document, and slid it across the table. County record. Deed still active under your name. No sale filed, no transfer notarized. They got nothing but a photocopy someone dropped off 3 years ago. I unfolded it, my pulse ticking like a metronome. There it was, my name, stamped and sealed, still marked as owner of record. I looked up. You're telling me the house they've been living in, bragging about, still yours, he said flatly. You never lost it, but someone sure wanted you to think you did. I leaned back, laughing once, short and bitter. They've been calling me senile for months, saying I don't know what I signed. Earl studied me. They were betting on that. The thing about being the quiet man, George, is people think you're harmless. I ran my thumb over the paper's edge, feeling its weight. Harmless, I repeated. Yeah, that's what they think. The waitress passed by with a coffee pot. I waved her off, eyes fixed on the document like it might burn a hole through the table. Earl lowered his voice. If you want this handled legal, we can do it right. Re-verify ownership, freeze the sale, bring in a sheriff if they try anything. But once you start, there's no walking it back. I folded the deed carefully, sliding it into my jacket pocket. Good. I don't plan to. He hesitated. You sure you're up for it, old friend? I smiled. Not the tired, forced smile from the dinner table, but something sharper. I've been humiliated, broke, and called crazy in front of my own son, I said. Up for it doesn't begin to cover it. He nodded slowly. Then you'll need proof, more than paper. Something that makes them choke on their own words. I already have that, I said, standing. He frowned. You do? I tapped my temple. Memory, every signature, every date, every word they ever threw at me. They wanted a fool. I paused, gripping the diner door handle, voice low but firm. I'll show them a man who remembers everything. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying dust, grit, and a long overdue sense of purpose. George unfolded his phone and opened the voice recorder app. The first file he named was simple: confession. That night I didn't sleep. I planned. Not the kind of plan a desperate man makes, but the kind forged in humiliation, sharpened by silence and measured like steel. Earl came by my trailer just after dawn, carrying a thermos and a small stack of folders. He set them down on my table beside my coffee mug. "You said you wanted to make them see the truth," he said. "This'll do it." Inside the folders were copies, official, notarized duplicates of the deed, the property tax payments, even the insurance policy, all still under my name. "Step 1, Earl said, tapping the top sheet. "We get this certified by the county clerk tomorrow. That locks your ownership. Nobody can touch that land without your signature." I nodded, already moving to step 2 in my head. "Then we make them admit it." He raised an eyebrow. "How?" "I've still got a few favors left around town. Deputy Harris, remember him? We built his father's porch back in '03. He owes me one." Earl smirked. "Always good to have law on your side." "Law," I said, "and evidence." I pulled my phone from my pocket and scrolled to the recorder app. Step 2. Get Martin to talk. He loves to gloat when he thinks he's safe. Earl leaned in. "You planning to confront him?" "Not yet. I'll bait him. Mention I've been reevaluating the property tax bill. That'll make him panic. He'll want to clear things up, and he'll talk. All I need is 10 minutes and that big mouth of his." Earl nodded slowly, a grin spreading. "And step 3? Bring in a witness," I said. "Someone neutral, but close enough to matter." He frowned. "Ethan?" I hesitated. The thought twisted in my chest. "Yeah, he needs to hear the truth from their mouths. No lawyer, no gossip, just their own words." Earl handed me a business card. "County Records Office opens at 8. I'll meet you there with certified copies. And George..." "Yeah?" He looked at me, his eyes serious. "Once you start this, you can't go back to being the quiet man." I gave a thin smile. That man's gone. When he left, I sat alone for a long time, staring at the table, 3 steps, 3 nails for the coffin they'd built for me. I grabbed a pen and wrote them down in my notebook. The same one I'd used back when business still meant something. 1 deed certified. 2 confession recorded. 3 witness present. Underneath, I added 1 more line in small, steady handwriting. Thanksgiving dinner, endgame. Outside, the wind rattled the trailer windows. George glanced at his reflection in the glass, barely recognizing the man staring back. For the first time in years, that man didn't look broken. He looked ready. Thursday morning, the courthouse smelled like floor polish and paper dust, the scent of quiet power. Earl met me at the county clerk's window, holding 2 manila folders tight against his chest. The clerk, a young woman with kind eyes, scanned the forms, stomping each page with a heavy thunk that echoed down the hall. "There you go, Mr. Whitman," she said, sliding the folder back through the slot. "Certified deed copy, property taxes, and insurance all verified in your name. Active since 1994, never transferred." Her words landed like a gavel. Earl grinned. First nail in the coffin. I thanked her, took the folder, and walked out into the sunlight. The courthouse steps felt taller than I remembered, but for once, every step I took felt solid. Outside, I called Martin. He picked up on the second ring. "Well, well, if it isn't the ghost of Thanksgiving past. To what do I owe the pleasure?" "I just left the county office," I said evenly. Turns out the property taxes are overdue. Thought you might want to handle it before there's trouble. There was a long pause, then a forced laugh. You sure you're looking at the right file, Georgie? That place has been mine for years. I'll bring the paperwork by tonight, I said. Maybe you can help me remember what I signed. Before he could answer, I hung up. Earl looked at me over the hood of my truck. That'll get him talking. Good, I said. He's got a lot to say. We set up in my trailer later that evening, Earl handling the recorder, me rehearsing the conversation like a man about to pour gasoline on dry grass. When Martin arrived, he came alone, chewing gum and smirking like someone walking into a bad poker hand he thought he could still bluff. Got your message, he said, looking around. You know, most people invite family over for beer, not paperwork. I gestured to the table. Sit. He rolled his eyes but obeyed. All right, let's get this over with. I slid the deed copy toward him. This look familiar? He scanned it, his smirk faltering just a hair. Looks like the one I signed years ago. You mean forged, I said. He chuckled, nervous now. Come on, Georgie. Nobody forged anything. You were half drunk, remember? You even thanked me for taking the weight off your shoulders. My pulse spiked, but I stayed still, voice steady. So you admit I didn't sign it sober? He froze, realizing too late what he'd said. That's not what It's recorded, I said, standing. Every word. He shot to his feet, knocking over his chair. You set me up? No, I said quietly. You set yourself up the day you thought humiliation would make me forget. He glared at me, breathing hard. You think a stupid tape will change anything? Earl stepped out from the corner, voice calm. It's not stupid when it's admissible. Martin's face drained of color. I opened the folder, pulled out the certified deed, and laid it flat on the table. The county seal gleamed under the lamp. Proof number 1, I said. Paper doesn't lie, even when people do. He turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I looked at Earl. That's one down, he nodded. Now comes the hard part. George looked out the window into the dark, the reflection of the deed in the glass beside his face. Next time, he said softly, I won't just make him talk. I'll make them all listen. Sunday came again. Same house, same table, but not the same man. I parked out front just before dusk. Through the dining room window, I could see the warm glow of chandeliers and the shapes of people who thought they'd already written my story. Martin opened the door with that same smirk. You sure like family dinners for a guy who hates company. Yeah, I said, stepping inside. I figured I'd bring dessert. He frowned, but I walked past him, holding the folder tight under my arm. Linda and Ethan were already seated. The roast beef again, like some twisted tradition. Ethan gave me a polite nod, the kind a stranger gives a man who used to be his father. Let's keep this civil, Linda said coolly. We all want peace. I set the folder on the table and looked at each of them. Peace usually comes after truth. Martin chuckled, pouring himself a drink. Here we go again. You're obsessed, Georgie. Maybe we should get you checked out. Early dementia's nothing to be ashamed of. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Uncle, that's not fair. Fair? I interrupted. You want fair, son? Let's talk about fair. I pulled out the document and laid it flat in the center of the table. The county seal caught the chandelier light. Linda leaned forward. What is this supposed to be? The certified deed, I said quietly. The same one the county clerk stamped 2 days ago. Still in my name. Never transferred. Never sold. Martin froze, hand midair. I kept going, voice steady, every word cutting slow and deliberate. All these years you've called me delusional. You said I signed it over, that I was drunk, that I forgot. But paper doesn't forget. Linda's face drained of color. That's not possible. I saw the paperwork. You saw a photocopy, I said. The same one your brother-in-law dropped off without a signature or a notary. Fraud, Linda. The kind that sends people to court. Martin stood abruptly. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit play. His voice filled the room. Come on, Georgie. Nobody forged anything. You were half drunk, remember? You even thanked me for taking the weight off your shoulders. The recording crackled, clear and undeniable. Ethan's fork clattered onto the plate. Uncle Martin. You said Dad. Shut up, kid, Martin snapped. But the tremor in his voice gave him away. Linda covered her mouth. My God, I stared at her. You wanted to talk about embarrassment. This is it. The truth, right here on your good china. Ethan stood, eyes darting between us. Mom, you knew about this? Linda didn't answer. Martin tried to recover, tone slick. You think some recording changes anything? You've got nothing, George. Nobody believes a washed-up old man. I leaned in, inches from his face. Then let's see who they believe when the sheriff plays this same tape in court. The room fell silent, thick with the sound of a man's pride collapsing. I folded the deed back into the envelope, tucked it under my arm, and looked at them one last time. Next Sunday's Thanksgiving, I said. Don't bother setting the table. I'll bring the law. 2 days after the dinner, the whispers turned venomous. It started with a text from an old coworker. Heard you forged docs to steal your brother's property. Sheriff's office might come knocking. You okay? I stared at the screen, bile rising. Martin hadn't wasted a second. By noon, half the town thought I'd broken into his house, stolen paperwork, and threatened the family. A local blog even posted an anonymous statement from a concerned relative saying I was mentally unstable and possibly dangerous. Linda, no doubt. When I called Ethan, he didn't pick up. The next message came an hour later. Dad, I don't know what's happening. Uncle says you're spiraling. Please don't do anything stupid. Spiraling. That word stuck in my throat like rust. By sunset, my trailer door shook under a heavy knock. Deputy Harris stepped inside, hat in hand, eyes cautious but kind. Evening, George. Folks been talking. Figured I'd hear it from you first. Then you'll hear the truth, I said, handing him the folder. Everything, certified deed, tax records, and a recording. Martin forged my name and turned my family against me. He took the papers, flipping through. You got any proof the forgery's real? I played the clip. Martin's voice, smooth and self-assured. Come on, Georgie. Nobody forged anything. You were half drunk, remember? Harris whistled low. That's his voice, all right. You record this yourself? Right here, in this trailer. I didn't edit a damn second. He nodded slowly. I'll have our tech verify it. In the meantime, keep your head low. They're building a story against you. Already have, I said. They're calling me crazy. Harris set the folder down, looked me dead in the eye. I remember the porch you built for my dad after his stroke. No charge, even though you were still paying off your own truck. You don't strike me as crazy, George. Just a man people shouldn't have pushed. For the first time in weeks, something in my chest loosened. Then help me prove it. He tipped his hat. Tomorrow morning, I'll pull the digital file Martin filed with the county and run a handwriting analysis. If there's a fake, we'll find it. But George, yeah? Once I do, this won't be a family fight anymore. It'll be criminal. I smiled faintly. Good. About time it became official. Later that night, I sat at the table, the deed and recorder between my hands like relics. Outside, the wind carried the smell of cold rain and dirt, same as the day Anna and I poured the first concrete on that property. I whispered to the empty room, "You tried to bury me with shame, Martin, but you forgot what's stronger than pride." The next morning, Harris texted one line that made my heart stop. "We found the second copy, and the signature doesn't match." Deputy Harris showed up the next morning with the look of a man carrying a live grenade in a file folder. He laid it on my kitchen table without a word. Inside were two sets of documents, one real, one fake. "The county keeps time-stamped logs," he said. "Your deed was recorded in '94, updated for taxes in '08, same clean signature every time. But 3 years ago," he tapped the second copy. "Someone uploaded a scanned image claiming to be a transfer of ownership. The file's metadata traces back to Martin's office computer." I stared at the signature on the fake. It had my name, but not my hand. The lines too smooth, the loop in the G closed when mine had always been open. Beneath it, in smaller font, "Witness, Linda Whitman." I sat back hard. "She signed as witness." Harris nodded. "Maybe she thought it was legal. Maybe she didn't care. Either way, it's fraud. And I've got the report to prove it." He slid over another paper, a crisp forensic statement with a county seal and 3 bold words. "Signature not authentic. Proof number 2. I folded the report carefully, feeling the weight shift in my chest. For months, they'd buried me under words. Liar, failure, delusional. But now I had something heavier. The truth on paper. Harris leaned back, arms crossed. "You want me to move forward with charges?" "Not yet," I said. "Not till he sees it. Not till they all do." He frowned. "You sure? Once it's public, it'll be ugly." "It's already ugly," I said. "I just want them to face what they built." He sighed. "Thanksgiving dinner's tomorrow, right?" I smiled, small, cold. "Yeah, guess it's fitting. They carved me up last year. This time, I bring the knife." Harris gave a dry chuckle. "Then I'll be there. Off duty, but close enough if it turns." That night, I called Ethan. He finally answered, voice hesitant. "Dad, why are people saying the sheriff's involved?" "Because the truth finally is," I said. "You still trust your uncle?" "I don't know who to trust anymore." "Then come see for yourself." He hesitated. "You want me there?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Because this time, I'm not fighting to win. I'm fighting to remind you who I am." There was a pause, then a shaky breath. "Okay, I'll come." When I hung up, I looked at the 2 folders on the table, one clean, one corrupted, and realized how simple justice really was. It wasn't about rage or revenge anymore. It was about weight. And tomorrow, I'd make sure the heavier truth crushed every lie they'd ever told. Outside, the church bell from town rang 6 times, slow, echoing through the dusk. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving dinner would sound like Judgment Day. Thanksgiving night, the table looked like a photograph from a life I no longer belonged to. Turkey carved, candles lit, silverware gleaming. Every seat taken. Martin at the head, Linda on his right, Ethan beside her. A few cousins, old neighbors, the same crowd who'd watched me crumble last year. This time I didn't come empty-handed. Martin raised his glass, grinning. "Before we start, I'd like to give thanks to family, to forgiveness, and to knowing when to move on." I waited until the laughter settled. Then I stood. "Mind if I say a few words?" He smirked. as long as it's shorter than your last bankruptcy hearing." I didn't smile. I opened the folder in my hand and placed two documents on the table, one crisp, one faintly smudged. "Last year," I said, "you all called me crazy, senile, a drunk who couldn't remember what he'd signed. But tonight, you'll remember." Martin leaned back, arms folded. "Here we go again." I slid the first page forward. The original deed, certified and sealed. My name, my wife Anna's, no transfers, no sales, active and legal. Then I placed the second page beside it. "And here's the forgery, filed 3 years ago from your computer, Martin, with a fake signature, and your witness, Linda Whitman." Gasps rippled down the table. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Martin barked out a laugh. "You can't prove that!" I nodded to the doorway. "Deputy Harris?" Bootsteps echoed on hardwood. The deputy stepped in, hat under his arm, badge catching the candlelight. He spoke evenly, his voice carrying through the stunned room. "Forensic verification confirms the second signature is falsified. The file metadata traces directly to Martin Whitman's office. This document," he lifted the forged copy, "is evidence of real estate fraud under state law." The room went dead quiet. Martin's face drained of color. "This is a setup, like the one you tried to bury me with?" I interrupted. "You forged my name, stole my property, and used my son to humiliate me." Ethan pushed back his chair. "Uncle, you said Dad was lying." It was for the family," Martin stammered. "No," Ethan said, voice breaking. "It was for you." Linda whispered, "Oh my God," tears streaking down her perfect makeup. I looked at her. "You watched me lose everything, and you let him do it. Why?" She shook her head, sobbing. "I thought you'd given up." I took a slow breath. "I did, until you made me remember who I was." Then I looked back at Martin, voice steady as stone. "You mocked me in my own house. You called me nothing, but everything you stand on, every brick, every inch, still carries my name." Deputy Harris placed handcuffs on Martin's wrists. The metal clicked louder than any prayer. "Martin Whitman," he said, "you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and falsification of county records." As he led him toward the door, Martin turned once, eyes wild. "You think this makes you a hero, Georgie?" I stared at him, calm. "No, just a man who remembers the truth." The door shut. Silence. Only the soft hum of the candles. Ethan stood, tears in his eyes. "Dad, I'm sorry." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't be. You saw what you needed to see." Outside, the night air smelled like rain and redemption. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest was gone. George looked back through the doorway at the house, his house, and said quietly, "A week after Thanksgiving, the sheriff's cruiser still left faint tire marks on Martin's driveway, my driveway." The county restored the property under my name within days. Papers signed, filed, and final. This time, every letter, every loop in my signature belonged to me. The story made the local paper, "Family dispute ends in arrest. Forgery uncovered in Denton property case." They left my name out. I preferred it that way. I rebuilt the porch the following Saturday. The same boards Martin had let rot. Ethan showed up around noon, holding a thermos of coffee. He didn't say much at first, just watched me hammer the last nail. Finally, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I looked up at him. "Because I wanted you to see who your father was, not hear it." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I did." We sat there for a while, drinking coffee and listening to the quiet hum of Texas wind through the pecan trees. For the first time in years, the silence didn't hurt. Linda sent a letter through the lawyer. No excuses, no begging, just 6 words. I was wrong. You deserved better. I folded it once and put it in Anna's old ledger, the one that had outlasted every lie. The neighbors stopped whispering. Some nodded when I passed, some didn't. It didn't matter. The ones who mattered already knew the truth. At night, I sit on the porch and look at the lights flickering across the fields, the same land my wife once called our forever piece of sky. They tried to take that sky from me. But they forgot. A man doesn't lose what he built with his own hands, not while he's still breathing. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done being quiet. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U55 America, because stories like mine deserve to be heard. It's been 3 months since that Thanksgiving night. The house is quiet now, not empty, just honest. The kind of quiet that doesn't hum with secrets anymore. I kept the old oak table, wiped it clean, sanded the dents where knives and pride once collided. Now it holds simpler things. My morning coffee, a folded newspaper, the same county seal that once saved me. Martin's serving time in Huntsville. The papers called it a rare family fraud case. Linda moved to her sister's place out west. We don't talk much, but last week she sent a short letter. Just 3 words. You were right. Ethan comes by every Sunday. He helps me fix the fence line, brings pie from the diner. The first time he came back, he didn't say a word, just handed me a wrench and got to work. Sometimes silence is the only apology a man can give. As for me, I've rebuilt slowly, piece by piece. Not just the house, the dignity they tried to strip away. Turns out it doesn't take money or revenge to reclaim your name. Just proof, and the patience to let truth walk its own pace. Every morning, when the sun hits that porch just right, I whisper a small thank you to the woman who believed in me first. We built this right, Anna, and I kept my word. The world can laugh at you, twist your story, make you kneel. But if you hold the proof in your hands, sooner or later, they'll have to look up again. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U55 America, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.